Peace, family. Dr. Ali is in the building, and I'm coming to talk about something that I posted earlier this week. Earlier this week, I posted a picture of someone who I consider one of the most pivotal figures in regards to the development of what became known as the Civil War. And I waited a few days to see if anybody could recognize that particular person. A lot of people come through my pages, and they were not able to tell me who that person was. This is a part of a bigger project that we're doing. I'm currently doing the work for a documentary. It's called the Indigenous Insurrection, the Black Rebellion, the Untold Causes of the Civil War. And that documentary is also a part of a letter of intent that we are writing to the Trump administration for our tribe to get federal recognition in the form of services and funding through the BIA. So all of that work in that project and me asking that question online was just, one of my little thought experiments to see whether or not our people are acclimated to some of the most important histories about their experience here in the United States of America. And it shows me that they aren't. And so a part of the documentary is going to focus on two people. One who is commonly known as John Horse or John Cavello, or Kawaya, and another one is Moses Dixon. Moses Dixon was the man that I actually posted. And these two figures are given attention in the documentary because of how important it is to understand the real causes of the Civil War. I'm naming this documentary The Indigenous Insurrection, the Black Rebellion, because it was the Black tribes of the South who were warring with the United States government and the infiltrator tribes that led to the Civil War. And there are many different names for the battles. Most people don't know that Tecumseh, after the War of 1812, actually traveled to Alabama and met with the Red Sticks, who were sometimes called Upper Creeks, who were the adversaries of the Lower Creeks, who were the Eurasian Native Americans who allied with the United States federal government. Those Upper Creeks have been given names like Seminole and other terms. Their primary name in documentation from the inception was Yamasee. And we need to know this history because as we get our understanding going into the 1800s, we will understand why the Civil War happened if we understand the many multiple wars with these Black tribes in the Southeast, who were not here as a result of an African slave trade. In fact, the first slave trade from 1670 up to 1712 led to the Yamasee War, where about 50,000 American Indians were enslaved, but these were Black people. And this part of history is not known. Most of us, when we hear the term, we got Indian in our family, we start thinking that we as Africans mix with other people. That is not the case anthropologically and historically. And so we need a better understanding of this history, which is why we do our think tanks in ARNA, and as a result of doing dissertations and think tanks, we come up with these documentaries because we want to educate our people as we move forward politically with the things that we want to do to bring resolution to many of the problems that we have, socioeconomic, etc. And so Moses Dixon and John Horse become two prevalent figures. Moses Dixon was a part of the most influential organization of the 1800s, and most people don't know nothing about it. Its colors, red, black, and green, later adopted by Marcus Garvey and others. Most people don't know that comes from Moses Dixon. So who was Moses Dixon? When you read the biography of John Horse or Moses Dixon, you are not going to get the clarity that you need. Moses Dixon assembled 40,000 people to arrive in Atlanta with others to carry out an insurrection against the United States government in 1857. Moses Dixon had the most popular organizations. First, the Knights of Liberty, who organized those 40,000 men in the 1840s. And they did this through communication networks. Most people don't know that the same way you have text messages now, we had the telegraph at that time. So our systems of communication were not what you think they are when you get this idea of slavery in the 1800s. Absolutely not. The ideas of cotton. We were growing cotton when the Spanish came here. Indigenous peoples in North America with dark skin. and kinky hair, had cotton plantations all across the South and were growing cotton. So cotton was not something that Europeans developed. Cotton was something like rice and other things that they found when they came here. And so we're doing this documentary so we could get clarity on these things. There were 200,000 men who were going to descend onto Atlanta to take over the city in 1857. Abraham Lincoln, other Southern generals, they were aware of these things. In fact, our perception of even Confederate generals and plantation owners are not accurate. Cassius Marcellus Clay, a general amongst the Confederacy, helped Moses Dixon with his efforts to overthrow the government. And his explanation for it was that he had only inherited the slaves from his family. Notice the name, Cassius Marcellus Clay. That is the name of the great Muhammad Ali. And Cassius Marcellus Clay, the white man, lived in Kentucky and enslaved the indigenous family members of who we know as Muhammad Ali. So the extensive genealogy and history that we need to learn in order to get a clear picture of what happened to us, whether or not these are slave names, and they were in some senses, whether or not our people came here and they already had these names, we did. A good example is Crispus Attucks, who is known as the first person to die in the American Revolutionary War. Scholars contend that because there was a younger person who died. But the point is, Crispus Attucks was an Indian. The name Attucks is an indigenous name. And so when he's portrayed as an African American, we need to understand that, yes, he was a Black American, but he was not from Africa. There's so much we need to learn, so much authentic history we need to go over. We often give credence to people because they're considered experts without doing great vetting and having think tanks and scholars amongst our own organizations who could do that vetting very well. Well, Arna has that. We're going to release a great documentary. Moses Dixon is one of the most influential people of his time. You've never heard of him. That is the testimony to, the detriments of not having your own institutions to do the work. We have those institutions now. We can do the work. We can bring back the history of John Cavallo so we can understand what Muskegean history really was, what it was to really be a Creek, why there was a Creek Civil War before the American Civil War, and what led to this thought of rebellion. We have to learn these things. Moses Dixon was bringing in arms into what is now Galveston, Texas, to overthrow the government. But we're celebrating Juneteenth, where the slaves allegedly didn't know that they were free. We got to do some work. I'm excited to do the documentary. That person that I posted was Moses Dixon. Of course, you're going to go look him up, and there's going to be probably about 50% of the information that you need to source very well, or with John Horst, but we're going to source it very well for you so that you can learn about your indigenous history, you can learn why the Civil War happened, and most importantly, you can learn what you need to be doing right now in regards to your identity to get remedy. Thank you for your time. Peace.